Hey everybody, the famous Jeb here. Uh, I wanted to talk about something that everybody is dealing with. The big I word. The big I word. It doesn't matter what state you go to. It doesn't matter what town you're in. It doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. Inflation affects everyone, whether you have a house, whether you have a job, whether you're homeless and have no job. Inflation is a real thing. You know, as I've gone through my journey here, I've been in multiple states. I've been in multiple different areas. I've been in some really big cities, I've been in some really small towns. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're living on a Social Security card or a Social SSI, Social Security, retirement, a 401k. You're still working and you're getting paid $100,000 a year, or you're getting paid $30,000 a year. This inflation affects everyone. I mean, you look at people that are really prepared. Let's say, people that have set aside 75% of their paychecks, if that's even possible in today's world. But you take people that have ultimately never really been prepared and like said, oh well, I'm going to set this much money aside, and yet they still struggle. So what is it that has gotten to the point to where you go to the store and uh, uh, a little bitty piece of beef jerky cost you $6? How has it gotten to the point to where you go to the store and a thing of Folgers coffee, the little plastic round jug with the black top lid, cost you almost $15 to $20? How has it gotten to the point to where the normal things that a basic household needs, toilet paper, dish detergent, um, sugar, all of these things that are ultimately every basic commodities in a household have just skyrocketed, rocketed. And I don't care, once again, like I said, I do not care who you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could be, you think Jeff Bezos isn't affected by inflation? Like, I know he's a billionaire, a gazillionaire, but yet I'm sure he's affected by it. I'm sure whenever he goes to put gas in his yacht, he's affected by this. But let's forget about the people that have bukus of money, that have prepared and ultimately worked really hard at their job and worked decades at a certain position and have worked through the ranks and got their raises and put money aside every year and didn't go on that vacation. Let's set those people aside. Let's set those people aside. Think about the people that, okay, they're just making ends meet. You've got people that have literally, let's say they had a job for 6 months and they finally were able to find something that they could afford. A small apartment, a small studio apartment that barely has any appliances in it, that barely has, a small little bathroom in it, and they still have to go to the laundromat to do their clothes. And then, boom, they lose their job. Not because they did anything wrong, but because the company could no longer afford to pay them. And because ultimately, inevitably, they could fire them and hire somebody and pay that person that replaced them less money. And then guess what? 30 days later, they don't have the ability to pay their rent. And then because they don't have the ability to pay the rent, they're behind on the rent. And then another 30 days later, they're like, oh, my landlord's going to kick me out. And then ultimately they get kicked out, and then all of their possessions that they don't have the money to go pay for a $75 to $100 storage unit. And so they start selling all their possessions. And anything that is of value, they sell to just make the next day, to get the next meal. And then ultimately, inevitably, because that job that they had didn't pay an affordable wage to be able to afford a small studio apartment, and yet you got people that say, oh, well, they should have been prepared for that. Well, they were doing the best that they could. And then now, because there is no apartment or house or anything that's affordable that they could afford, they're ultimately, inevitably, now they are homeless. And so I look at my journey and I think about, okay, what's the next step here? Let me look at an apartment. Let me look at a simple small studio apartment. Oh, $1,200. But not only is it $1,200 a month, but you got to have the first month's rent. You got to have the last month's rent. Then you got to have another security deposit. Oh, and guess what? You got to pay $125 for an application fee. And you pay that $125 application fee, you're not even guaranteed to get in a place. They could just take that $125 application fee and take your paper and put it through shredder. You don't know. And so you say, oh, go get a job. All right, well, let's go get a job. Let's go get a job that you work an 8-hour shift, a 6-hour shift, or a 12-hour shift, and you're getting paid, $8.25, $9.25, $10 an hour. Let's say let's do a little bit of math here. I go work 6 hours. I get paid $10 an hour. How much money is that? How much money? Let me do the math. Oh, wait. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours at $10 an hour. How much money? $60, right? $60, right? Oh, wait. And then Uncle Sam, he's got to take a little piece of that chunk of change, right? And so that money gets lower, right? It gets lower. Oh, but that $10 an hour. And oh, guess what? You only get 4 days a week. You can only work 4 days a week. And so that money gets smaller and smaller. And oh wait. Let's not forget about, you need a vehicle to get back and forth to work. Oh, you go and you buy a $1,500, $2,000 vehicle. And once you buy that vehicle, guess what? You gotta have insurance. You gotta pay for your tags. All of these things that society tells you that you have to be able to live and get a job and have an apartment, or, all of these incremental things that make the world go round. Oh, but guess what? Little old Jeb here has none of those things. Nothing. We got a wagon and a cart that I just replaced a tire on today. I literally had it sitting up on blocks. Like I was up underneath my vehicle. That's my vehicle. That's my transportation. Is a pull behind cart. And it's funny too, because you look at the prices of everything on top of that $1,200 that you have to get into an apartment. Not a 2-bedroom apartment with 1.5 bath. I'm talking about a studio apartment that has no appliances, no washer and dryer, and has a small bathroom. You're talking $1,200 a month on top of last month's rent. That's another $1,200 plus another $1,200 security deposit. And once again, don't forget the $125 application fee that doesn't even guarantee that you could even get into a place. And I go right back to inflation. You're talking about, in the midst of trying to find a vehicle, find an apartment, you also got to feed yourself. You can't even go out here. Yeah, you can go to McDonald's and get you a $15 Big Mac with some fries and a drink, And guess what? You eat that, and an hour later, you're hungry because it is no sustenance. You go out here and you try to just make ends meet. You're eating, cans of tuna. That's decently cheap. You're eating a box of crackers. You're eating ramen, stuff that is ultimately inevitably just cheap and gives you just a little bit of sustenance. And need I remind you, don't forget about the things that happen that you don't account for. Oh, one of the dogs gets a cut on the foot. There you go. Now you got a reoccurring vet bill because now you got to go in, you got to get it stitched, you got to get stitches, and then 6 weeks later you got to go in, have the stitches taken out. And then we'll have you come back in for a checkup, and then when you come back in for the checkup, oh well, let's see, there's something in the ear, let's get that out. Oh, guess what? I go and I get injured. I'm walking down the street. I flop my ankle on the curb. Guess what? I got to go to the hospital for 3 hours. I got to get an air cast. And then, I got to hobble around with an air cast on me that ultimately inevitably makes my foot hurt worse. But you know what? That's what the doctor ordered. Oh, and guess what? You got to go pay for your prescription pills. You got how many people out here that pay $8,000-$9,000 every month for 6, 7, 8 different pills? It's outrageous, and everybody's dealing with this. I don't care if you make a $100,000 a year or $20,000 a year. Everybody's dealing with the same situation. If you're new to the channel, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're a regular viewer and you are an existing subscriber, I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to talk about this. If you're dealing with this and you're kind of experiencing what I'm talking about, get in the comments. Let's talk about it, okay? I want somebody to kind of break it down even further. I know there's people out there that kind of understand this, and, this is something that the reason why I'm talking about this is because it is, it's not something that I really understood until now. It's something that I'm starting to see and recognize even as I'm sitting here homeless. I'm in a bed that's not mine. I was blessed with the ability to be here, and it's come to an end. I want everybody out there to know that I really appreciate everybody supporting me, giving me encouragement, and giving me motivation to continue forward. I love you all, and I really hope that we can continue on this journey together. Bye.